Kextai floated through the corridors of Harmony's Edge, his 6 tentacles moving gracefully as he checked his recording device one more time. The research station buzzed with excitement. Today marked another first contact with a new species, something that happened maybe once every few decades in their peaceful corner of the galaxy. The Velterran observer had witnessed 12 first contacts in his long career. Each time it followed the same pattern. New species arrived, everyone exchanged gifts and knowledge, trade agreements were signed, and another civilization joined the great family of peaceful worlds. It was always pleasant, always civilized. Through the large viewing windows, Kextai could see representatives from 6 different species preparing for the arrival. The tall, blue-skinned Zenthari adjusted their ceremonial robes. The rock-like Gorthans polished their mineral gifts. Even the energy beings called luminals had gathered, their light forms dancing with anticipation. Another routine contact. Kextai spoke into his recorder. The species calls themselves humans. They come from a small world they call Earth. Initial scans show they are carbon-based, bipedal, and appear to have reached basic space travel capabilities. The station commander, a wise old Zenthari named Velkas, approached with his usual calm smile. "Ready to document history, my friend?" Kextai's tentacles curled in what his species considered a nod. Always fascinating to see how a new species will fit into our galactic community. What do we know about these humans? Standard biological scans show they are remarkably similar to several existing species. They breathe oxygen, require water, and seem to organize themselves into social groups. Their preliminary communications suggest they value art, science, and peaceful exchange. Sounds promising. The first human ship appeared as a dot against the stars, growing larger as it approached the station. Kextai noted that it looked different from most first contact vessels. Where other species built their ships with smooth, flowing lines that spoke of peaceful purposes, this human craft had angular edges and what looked like armored plating. "Interesting design choices," Kextai murmured to his recorder. "The vessel appears more robust than typical exploration craft." The ship docked with practiced efficiency. Kextai watched through the viewing port as 3 humans stepped out of their vessel. They moved with purpose, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. The leader wore what appeared to be a military-style uniform, dark blue with various insignia. "I am Captain Lee Dae-ho," the human leader announced in perfect galactic standard language. His voice was steady, controlled. "This is Dr. Park Yuna, our science officer, and Ambassador Choi Beom, our diplomatic representative." Velkas stepped forward with traditional Zenthari grace. "Welcome to Harmony's Edge. I am Commander Velkas. We are honored to meet representatives of humanity." The humans accepted the greeting, but Kextai noticed something odd. While Ambassador Choi Beom smiled and spoke pleasantly, Captain Lee Dae-ho's eyes never stopped moving. He seemed to be studying every exit, every corridor, every face in the welcoming committee. Dr. Park Yuna appeared more relaxed, genuinely interested in the alien technology around her. She asked intelligent questions about the station's construction and the various species present, but even she carried herself with a certain alertness that Kextai had never seen in other first contact delegations. The formal ceremonies proceeded normally. Gifts were exchanged. The humans presented beautiful works of art, music recordings, and samples of their literature. In return, they received similar offerings from the various species represented on the station. "Your artwork shows remarkable creativity," Velkas commented, examining a small sculpture the humans had gifted. "The emotional depth is quite moving." "Thank you," Ambassador Choi Beom replied. "We believe art helps different species understand each other better." During the cultural exchange, Kextai floated closer to observe the humans more carefully. They seemed genuinely interested in learning about other species, asking detailed questions about biology, society, and technology. Dr. Park Yuna showed particular interest in the station's defense systems. "This energy shield technology is impressive," she said, studying the readouts. "How effective is it against kinetic attacks?" The Zenthari engineer looked puzzled. "Kinetic attacks? We rarely encounter such primitive methods. Our shields are designed to deflect energy weapons and particle beams." "Of course," Dr. Park Yuna nodded, just curious about the specifications. As the day progressed, the humans proved to be pleasant company. They shared stories of their world, spoke of their achievements in science and exploration, and seemed eager to learn about galactic civilization. Ambassador Choi Bayom discussed trade possibilities while Dr. Park Yuna exchanged scientific data with researchers from various species. But Kextai noticed small details that bothered him. When Captain Lee Daeho thought no one was watching, his hand would rest near what looked like a weapon on his belt. When Dr. Park Yuna examined alien technology, she seemed to be memorizing more than just studying. And Ambassador Choi Byom asked very specific questions about galactic political structures and military capabilities. During the evening meal, the conversation turned to galactic history and politics. The humans listened intently as various species described the long period of peace that had lasted for over 3 centuries. "How do you resolve conflicts between species?" Captain Lee Daeho asked. "Through the Galactic Accord," Velkas explained. "When disagreements arise, we bring all parties together for mediation. Economic pressure and diplomatic isolation usually convince any troublemakers to see reason. And if that doesn't work?" The aliens exchanged confused looks. "It always works," a Gorthan representative said. "Civilized beings understand that violence solves nothing." Captain Lee Daeho and his companions exchanged a brief glance. "Of course," he said carefully. "We're still learning about galactic customs." Later that evening, Kextai was reviewing his recordings when he overheard a conversation between the human delegation. They spoke in their own language, but Kextai's translator device picked up fragments. "Defensive systems remain online," Captain Lee Daeho was saying. "Interesting shield technology, but limited applications," Dr. Park Yuna responded. "Remarkable how trusting they are," Ambassador Choi Byom added. Kextai wasn't sure what to make of the conversation. The humans seemed friendly enough, but there was something different about them. They carried themselves like soldiers rather than explorers. They asked questions like strategists rather than scientists. When he approached Captain Lee Daeho later, Kextai decided to ask directly. "Your species seems well prepared for space travel. Have you encountered other intelligent life before?" The human captain considered the question carefully. "We've always believed we weren't alone in the universe. Our species has experience with disagreements. We've learned it's better to be prepared." Disagreements? Conflicts, wars, competition for resources. Captain Lee Daeho spoke the words as if they were perfectly normal concepts. Kextai felt a chill run through his tentacles. Wars? The word was barely used in galactic standard language anymore. Most species had evolved beyond such primitive concepts thousands of years ago. But surely your people have moved beyond such things now that you've achieved space travel. Captain Lee Daeho smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We hope never to need such preparations again. But hoping and being ready are different things." As Kextai prepared his daily report, he struggled with how to describe the humans. They seemed civilized, intelligent, and genuinely interested in peaceful contact. But underneath their pleasant exterior, he sensed something that no other species had ever brought to first contact. They were dangerous. Not dangerous in the way of wild animals or natural disasters, but dangerous in a calculating, intelligent way. They were warriors pretending to be explorers, soldiers dressed as diplomats. "Initial assessment of human delegation remains positive," Kextai dictated to his recorder. "Species appears compatible with galactic civilization. However, further observation recommended to better understand their cultural background regarding conflict resolution." He paused, then added quietly, "There is something about these humans that bears watching." Outside his quarters, the station continued its peaceful routine, unaware that something fundamental had just changed in their quiet corner of the galaxy. 3 months had passed since the humans arrived at Harmony's edge. Kextai had grown used to their presence, though he never quite shook the feeling that there was more to them than they showed. The humans had been model guests, participating in cultural exchanges and helping with various research projects. Dr. Park Yuna had become particularly popular among the station's scientists. Her insights into human biology and technology fascinated everyone. Ambassador Choi Byom spent his days learning about galactic trade networks and political structures. Captain Lee Daeho mostly kept to himself, though he often walked the station's corridors, always observing. On this particular morning, Kextai was reviewing research data when the station's alarm began blaring. The sound was unfamiliar to most inhabitants of Harmony's edge. The peaceful research station had never faced any real danger. Commander Velkas's voice echoed through the station speakers, strained clear in his usually calm tone. All personnel, we have detected incoming vessels. Unknown ships approaching at high speed. All civilian staff report to designated safe areas immediately. Kextai rushed to the observation deck, his tentacles moving frantically. Through the large windows he could see them approaching. Massive warships dark and menacing against the starfield. Their design was brutal, all sharp angles and weapon ports. These were not exploration vessels or trading ships. Corvani, whispered Dr. Hektar, a Zenthari scientist who had joined Kextai at the viewing window. I've seen recordings of their ships in historical archives, the Corvani Dominion. Kextai had heard stories, but they were like myths from another age. A militaristic empire from the galaxy's outer rim, known for slavery and conquest. But they hadn't been seen in this sector for over 50 years. Attention, Harmony's Edge. A harsh voice boomed over the communication system. This is War Leader Thakmor of the Corvani Dominion. You will surrender all research data and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in destruction. Commander Velkas immediately began broadcasting surrender signals, following standard Galactic Accord protocols. Corvani vessels, we are a peaceful research station. We offer no resistance. Please state your demands for negotiation. Laughter filled the comm channels. Negotiation? You soft shells still think words matter? You have 10 minutes to prepare for boarding. All inhabitants will be processed for slavery markets. Panic spread through the station like wildfire. Aliens ran through corridors, some crying, others trying to hide. The station's security force, trained only for minor incidents, stood helplessly at their posts. Violence was simply not part of their world. Kextai watched in horror as the first Corvani boarding pods launched from the warships. The pods slammed into the station's docking bays with brutal force, punching through the peaceful structure like bullets through paper. The first wave of Corvani warriors stormed into the station. Kextai had never seen such creatures. They stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating. Their faces were dominated by sharp teeth and cold, predatory eyes. They carried weapons that crackled with energy, and they moved with the confidence of beings who had conquered dozens of worlds. The alien crew offered no resistance. How could they? Most had never even seen a weapon used in anger. They cowered in corners, hoping the invaders would be merciful. Some tried to negotiate, offering research data in exchange for safety. The Corvani ignored their pleas. Then something unexpected happened. Captain Lee Dae-ho's voice crackled over the station's communication system, cutting through the chaos with calm authority. This is Captain Lee of the human vessel Bukansan. Corvani ships, you have 60 seconds to withdraw from this station and leave this system. The Corvani war leader's laughter boomed through the speakers. Human, is that some new slave species? Your tiny ship amuses me, little creature. 50 seconds, Captain Lee Dae-ho replied, his voice completely steady. Kextai stared out at the human ship. It looked so small compared to the massive Corvani dreadnoughts. What could one small vessel do against an entire battle fleet? You dare threaten the Corvani Dominion? War Leader Thakmor snarled. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. We will crush your pathetic ship and add you to our slaveholds. 30 seconds, came the human captain's response. Inside the station, more Corvani warriors poured through the corridors. Kextai watched them advancing toward the main research areas, their weapons ready. They grabbed terrified aliens, binding them with energy restraints. Some of the younger researchers were already being dragged toward the boarding pods. 10 seconds, Captain Lee Dae-ho announced. War Leader Thakmor was still, laughing when the countdown reached 0. What happened next would change Kextai's understanding of the universe forever. The human ship transformed before his eyes. Panels slid away, revealing weapon systems unlike anything in the galactic archives. Where civilized species used clean energy weapons that could be set to stun, humans had built something entirely different. The first human attack was a railgun salvo. Solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds tore through the Corvani shields like they weren't even there. 2 destroyers simply ceased to exist, torn apart by kinetic impacts that no one had thought to defend against. Impossible, War Leader Thakmor screamed over the communications. No species uses such primitive weapons. You're about to learn why, came a new voice from the human ship. This was Go Min-woo, the human tactical officer. His voice held the same deadly calm as his captain. The second wave of human weapons launched. Missiles with nuclear warheads struck the Corvani flagship, followed by something called plasma lance arrays that cut through armor like a hot knife through soft material. But the real shock came from inside the station. Human Marines appeared in the corridors like ghosts. Kexte hadn't even known there were humans aboard the station besides the 3 diplomats. Now he watched as 12 armored figures moved through the halls with deadly precision. Leading them was a human female who introduced herself over the comm as Sergeant Yoon Ha-jin. She spoke to her squad in calm, professional tones while systematically destroying Corvani warriors who had been terrorizing aliens just moments before. The humans fought with a brutality that made Kexte's tentacles curl in shock. They used the station's own structure as weapons, turning maintenance tools into instruments of war. One human, identified as Private Nam Ji-hoon, seemed to know exactly where to strike Corvani anatomy for maximum effect, but it wasn't mindless violence. Every human action was calculated, precise, purposeful. They fought like a machine designed for destruction, but a machine controlled by intelligence and strategy. Within minutes, the Corvani, who had been confidently conquering the station, were retreating in panic. These beings who had conquered hundreds of worlds were running from 12 humans and their improvised weapons. Outside, the space battle continued. The Corvani fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming, was being systematically destroyed by a single human vessel. The humans used tactics that no civilized species had ever conceived. They turned asteroids into projectiles, used the station's own gravity to slingshot attacks, and employed electronic warfare that confused Corvani targeting systems. This is impossible. War leader Thakmor's voice had lost all its arrogance. You cannot be this effective. You are just one ship. We're human, Captain Lee Dae-ho replied simply. We've been preparing for this our entire history. Dr. Park Yuna's voice joined the conversation, but now she sounded different. Gone was the friendly scientist. This was someone else entirely. War Leader Thakmor, we have analyzed your fleet composition and identified 17 critical weaknesses in your formations. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate each one. The revelation hit Kexte like a physical blow. Dr. Park Yuna wasn't just a scientist. None of them were what they claimed to be. Ambassador Choi Byom's voice came over the comm next, but now he was giving military orders to the human Marines inside the station. Sergeant Yoon, secure all Corvani prisoners. We need intelligence on their home base locations. The diplomat was actually a military commander. The research vessel was actually a warship. The peaceful humans were actually soldiers. As the last Corvani ship exploded under human fire, Kexte realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had just changed. The age of peace was ending, and the humans had just announced themselves as the new apex predators. The Corvani Dominion, conquerors of worlds, had been defeated by beings they had never heard of, and the humans were just getting started. Kexte's recording device captured it all, but he wondered if anyone would believe what they saw. The galaxy was about to learn that there were worse things than Corvani raiders. There were humans, and they were very, very good at war. The silence that followed the destruction of the Corvani fleet was deafening. Kexte floated in the observation deck, his tentacles trembling as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. Around him, other aliens stood in stunned silence, staring out at the debris field that had once been a mighty Corvani battle fleet. Commander Velkas's voice broke the silence over the station's communications. Human vessel Bukansan, this is Harmony's Edge. We thank you for your assistance. Captain Lee Dae-ho's response was immediate and professional. Harmony's Edge, this is Captain Lee. We're dispatching medical teams to assist with casualties. Request permission to begin search and rescue operations. Medical teams. Kexte's mind reeled. How could beings who had just demonstrated such devastating military capability speak so casually about medical assistance? The human Marines inside the station moved with the same efficiency they had shown in combat, but now they were helping wounded aliens and securing Corvani prisoners. Sergeant Yoon Ha-jin, who had been a terrifying warrior moments before, was now gently helping an injured Zinthari researcher. Easy there, she said softly, her voice completely different from the deadly professional tone she had used during the fighting. You're safe now. We're going to get you medical attention. Private Nam Ji-hoon, who had torn through Corvani warriors with surgical precision, was now using those same anatomical skills to treat wounded prisoners. He worked on Corvani injuries with the same careful attention he gave to alien victims. This doesn't make sense, Dr. Hector whispered to Kextai. They fight like monsters, then heal like angels. What kind of beings are they? Kextai was wondering the same thing. He watched as the human ship docked with the station. The vessel that had seemed small now looked different to his eyes. He could see weapon ports hidden beneath innocent-looking panels. What had appeared to be sensor arrays were actually targeting systems. The entire ship was a weapon disguised as an exploration vessel. Dr. Park Yuna was among the first humans to board the station after the battle. But she wasn't the friendly scientist Kextai had come to know over the past 3 months. This woman moved with military bearing, carrying herself like someone accustomed to command. "Status report," she said to Sergeant Yoon Ha-jin, her voice crisp and authoritative. "Station secured, ma'am. 17 Corvani prisoners, 12 wounded but stable. No human casualties. Station crew has minor injuries, mostly from panic responses. Good work. Begin interrogation procedures on the prisoners. I want to know everything about their base locations, fleet strength, and operational plans." Kextai's translator almost failed on the word interrogation. It was such an archaic concept that most modern languages barely had terms for it. Ambassador Choi Bayum approached Commander Velkus, but now his diplomatic smile was gone. This was clearly a military officer addressing a defeated enemy. "Commander, we need to discuss immediate security measures for this station." "I don't understand," Velkus replied, his blue skin pale with shock. "The threat has been eliminated. The Corvani are gone." "This was just a raiding party," Choi Byom explained patiently. "When they don't return, their main fleet will come looking. We need to prepare defenses." The concept seemed to physically pain Commander Velkus. "Defenses? We are a research station. You've never needed to defend yourselves before," Captain Lee Dae-ho said, joining the conversation. "That time is over. The galaxy just changed and you need to adapt or die." Kextai approached the group, his recording device capturing everything. "Captain Lee, may I ask you some questions? For the historical record?" The human captain studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Of course. Though I suspect you already know what you're going to discover. 3 months ago, you introduced yourselves as explorers and diplomats, but you're military officers, aren't you?" "Among other things, yes." Captain Lee Dae-ho's answer was matter of fact. "Dr. Park Yuna is indeed a scientist, but she's also our intelligence analyst. Ambassador Choi Byum is a diplomat, but he's also Admiral Choi Byum of our First Contact Fleet." "First Contact Fleet?" Kextai's tentacles curled in confusion. "You have an entire fleet dedicated to meeting new species?" "We have entire fleets dedicated to many things," Admiral Choi Byum replied. "Exploration, defense, research, and yes, first contact. We've been preparing for this day for a very long time." Dr. Park Yuna joined the conversation, her demeanor now completely different from the curious scientist Kextai had known. "We've been monitoring your galactic civilization for decades through long-range probes. We studied your languages, your cultures, your technologies, and your politics. You've been spying on us?" "We've been preparing," Captain Lee Dae-ho corrected. "My species has a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We hope to find a peaceful galactic community. We prepared for the possibility that we wouldn't." Engineer Kim So-young, who had seemed like a quiet technical specialist, now revealed herself as the ship's weapons officer. "Our technology might look primitive to you, but it's designed for one purpose, winning fights. Every system on our ship can be turned into a weapon if necessary." "You're faster than light drive," Kextai said, understanding dawning. "It's not just for travel. It's the most powerful bomb in our arsenal," Kim So-young confirmed cheerfully. "A properly detonated FTL core can crack a planet. Not that we'd ever want to use it that way, but the option exists." The casual way she spoke about planet-destroying weapons made Kextai's nervous system shut down for a moment. These beings discussed concepts that would horrify any civilized species, as if they were routine engineering problems. Over the next few hours, Kextai learned more about humanity than he had in 3 months of friendly contact. The humans spoke openly about their history, their technology, and their philosophy of warfare. "Every human child learns about war in school," Dr. Park Yuna explained. "Not because we want them to fight, but because we want them to survive. Our entire planet's history is a story of conflict, innovation born from necessity, and survival against impossible odds. We've fought wars with sticks and stones, Wars with chemical weapons, wars that could have destroyed our entire planet, Admiral Choi Baeom added. We've learned that peace is precious precisely because we know what the alternative looks like. Captain Lee Dae-ho showed Kextai technical specifications that made his tentacles curl in horror. Human military doctrine assumed that every conflict could escalate to total war. Their strategies included concepts like scorched earth tactics, asymmetric warfare, and mutually assured destruction. You prepare to destroy everything rather than lose? Kextai asked, horrified. We prepare for every possibility, Captain Lee Dae-ho replied. The goal isn't destruction. The goal is deterrent. When your enemies know you're capable of anything, they're more likely to choose negotiation. The human medic, Oh Da-eun, was treating both alien and Corvani wounded with equal care. When Kextai asked her about this contradiction, she smiled sadly. War is terrible, she said simply, but once it starts, you fight to win as quickly as possible. The faster you end it, the fewer people die. Then you heal everyone, including your enemies, because the war is over. You show mercy to beings who would have enslaved you? We show mercy because we can afford to, she replied. Strong people can be merciful. Weak people can't. As the day progressed, Kextai watched the humans work with methodical efficiency. They repaired station damage using salvaged Corvani materials. They established defensive positions that turned the peaceful research station into a fortress. They analyzed Corvani technology and integrated useful components into their own systems. But most disturbing of all, they did it while maintaining their friendly, helpful demeanor. They joked with alien crew members, shared stories about their homeworld, and continued their cultural exchanges as if nothing had changed. Except everything had changed. The galaxy had just discovered that it contained apex predators. Beings who could smile while calculating optimal firing solutions. Beings who could offer friendship while planning for war. Beings who could show mercy while demonstrating overwhelming force. As Kextai prepared his report that evening, he struggled with how to describe what he had witnessed. The humans weren't monsters. They were something far more dangerous. They were intelligent, organized, and utterly without illusions about the nature of conflict. The humans have entered our galaxy, he dictated to his recorder, but they haven't come to join our civilization. They've come to protect it from threats we never knew existed. And I suspect, he added quietly, that we're about to discover that the greatest threat was our own naivety. Outside his quarters, human engineers worked through the night, turning Harmony's Edge into something it had never been before. A fortress, and they sang while they worked. 2 days after the Corvani attack, Kextai found himself in the station's medical bay, watching something that challenged everything he thought he knew about intelligent behavior. Medic Oh Da-eun worked tirelessly beside alien doctors, treating wounded from both sides of the conflict with equal attention and skill. Why do you help them? Kextai asked, watching her carefully tend to a Corvani warrior's injuries. The massive alien had tried to enslave everyone on the station just hours before. Oh Da-eun looked up from her work, her hands still steady as she applied medical nanites to damaged tissue. Because he's wounded and I'm a medic. When the fighting stops, everyone becomes a patient. The simplicity of her answer disturbed Kextai more than the violence had. These humans could switch between deadly efficiency and compassionate care as easily as changing clothes. They weren't driven by emotion or hatred. They were driven by purpose and logic. In another section of the medical bay, Private Nam Ji-hoon was using his anatomical knowledge to develop better treatment protocols for Corvani physiology. The same skills he had used to find lethal pressure points were now being applied to save lives. Human military training includes comprehensive medical education. Dr. Park Yuna explained when Kextai asked about this contradiction. Every soldier is trained to heal as well as harm. It's more efficient that way. Efficiency. Everything the humans did came back to that concept. They weren't cruel warriors or peaceful healers. They were professionals who approached both war and peace with the same systematic methodology. Dr. Park Yuna had transformed the station's research labs into intelligence analysis centers. Banks of human computers processed data from the captured Corvani equipment, building comprehensive profiles of enemy capabilities and intentions. What we're seeing here is just the beginning, she explained to the assembled alien researchers. The Corvani Dominion controls 17 star systems. They have over 200 warships and maintain slave populations in the millions. The numbers made Commander Velkas's blue skin turn almost white. Millions of slaves? How is such a thing possible in our galaxy? Because your galaxy has been isolated, Admiral Choi Biom replied bluntly. The Galactic Accord represents maybe 30 star systems in a cluster that's been peaceful for 3 centuries. But the galaxy is huge, and most of it isn't peaceful at all. Captain Lee Daeho activated a holographic display showing the broader galactic map. Red zones marked areas controlled by aggressive species. Yellow zones indicated regions of active conflict. The green zone representing Galactic Accord space was a tiny island in a sea of violence. You've been living in a protected bubble, he continued. The Corvani are just one of dozens of militaristic empires out there. They've left you alone until now because you had nothing they wanted and weren't worth the trouble of conquering. That just changed, Dr. Park Yuna added. Your peaceful technology is actually quite advanced. Your energy shields, your medical nanites, your faster-than-light communication systems. Very valuable to species that prefer taking to trading. Engineer Kim So-young had been working with the station's technical staff, upgrading their systems with human military technology. The process fascinated and horrified Kextai in equal measure. Your energy shields are beautiful, she told the Zenthari engineers. Completely non-violent, designed to deflect particle beams and energy weapons. But you never considered that someone might shoot solid objects at you. She showed them modifications that would extend the shield's effectiveness against kinetic weapons. But the changes required fundamental alterations to the shield generators, turning them from purely defensive systems into potential weapons. Every defensive system can be turned into an offensive one, Kim So-young explained cheerfully. It's just a matter of application and creativity. The human modifications weren't just adding weapons to peaceful technology. They were changing the fundamental nature of how the aliens thought about their tools. A medical scanner could be modified to target enemy life signs. A communication array could be turned into an electronic warfare system. Even the station's life support could be weaponized if necessary. We don't want to turn you into warriors, Captain Lee Daeho explained to the increasingly disturbed alien crew. We want to give you the tools to survive in a galaxy that's more dangerous than you realized. But Kextai was beginning to understand that the changes went deeper than technology. The humans were changing how the aliens thought about everything. During the evening briefing, Admiral Choi Biom revealed the true scope of human preparation for galactic contact. We've been monitoring radio transmissions from this region for over 60 years, he said. We learned your languages, studied your cultures, analyzed your political structures and technological capabilities. You've been planning this contact for that long? Commander Velkas asked. We've been planning for every possible scenario, Dr. Park Yuna corrected. Peaceful contact was Plan A. We're currently implementing Plan B. What's Plan B? Forced integration into a defensive alliance under human military protection. The casual way she said it made Kextai's tentacles curl. The humans hadn't just been preparing for first contact. They had been preparing to take over. You're conquering us, Velkas said quietly. We're protecting you, Admiral Choi Biom replied. There's a difference. Conquerors take everything and give nothing back. Protectors take responsibility and provide security. What if we refuse your protection? Captain Lee Daeho's expression didn't change. Then you'll be conquered by someone else. The Corvani attack was just the beginning. Word is already spreading through their networks that this region contains valuable technology and defenseless populations. How do you know this? Because we've been interrogating the prisoners, Dr. Park Yuna said matter-of-factly. Human interrogation techniques are very effective. Kextai felt a chill run through his nervous system. Interrogation techniques? Psychological analysis mostly, she replied. We understand how different species think, what motivates them, what frightens them. We don't need to torture anyone. We just need to understand them better than they understand themselves. The revelation was terrifying. The humans hadn't just studied alien technology and politics. They had studied alien psychology, learning how to manipulate and control other species through pure understanding. That evening, Kextai requested a private meeting with the human leadership. He found them in the station's command center, working with quiet efficiency to coordinate defensive preparations. I need to understand, he said without preamble. What do you really want from us? Admiral Choi Biom looked up from the tactical displays. We want to prevent the collapse of galactic civilization. Your peaceful alliance represents something unique and valuable. It would be a tragedy to lose it to predators. But you're changing us into something we're not. We're helping you become what you need to be to survive, Captain Lee Daeho replied. Change or die. Those are the only options in this galaxy. Dr. Park Yuna joined the conversation, her expression serious. Kextai, your people have achieved something remarkable. 3 centuries of peace. Advanced technology developed through cooperation rather than conflict. Societies based on mutual understanding rather than dominance. That's beautiful and rare. But it's also fragile, Admiral Choi Biom continued. It only exists because you've been isolated from the galaxy's predators. That isolation is ending, so you're going to turn us into predators too. We're going to teach you how to defend yourselves against predators, Captain Lee Daeho said. There's a difference. Predators hunt the weak. Defenders protect them. Engineer Kim So-young looked up from her work. Think of us as immune system, she said with a smile. Your galactic civilization is like a healthy body that's never been exposed to disease. Now you're meeting viruses for the first time. You need antibodies. And you're the antibodies? We're the vaccine, Admiral Choi Biom replied. A controlled exposure to violence that teaches your civilization how to develop its own defenses. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the communications center. Long-range sensors had detected multiple fleets moving toward Galactic Accord space. The Corvani attack had indeed been just the beginning. How many ships? Captain Lee Daeho asked. Hundreds, came the reply. Multiple species all converging on our territory. Admiral Choi Biom smiled grimly. It seems word has spread that this region is undefended. They're coming to claim their share of the spoils. What do we do? Commander Velkus asked, his voice shaking. We prepare to teach the galaxy a lesson, Captain Lee Daeho replied. We show them what happens when they threaten our friends. Kextai realized with growing horror that the humans had been expecting this. They had planned for it. The destruction of the Corvani raiding party hadn't been a defensive action, it had been bait. The humans were using the Galactic Accord as a lure to draw all the galaxy's predators into one place where they could be eliminated. Systematically. You're using us, Kextai said quietly. We're protecting you, Admiral Choi Biom corrected. But yes, we're also using this opportunity to clean up the galaxy's criminal element. 2 objectives with 1 operation. How long have you been planning this? Since we first detected organized slavery and piracy in this region, Dr. Park Yuna replied. About 40 years. 40 years. The humans had been planning this intervention for Kextai found himself aboard the human destroyer Halasan, watching the systematic destruction of everything he thought he knew about warfare. Captain Shin Dong-woo commanded the vessel with the same quiet efficiency that seemed to characterize all human military. Operation Sensor Contact Bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Commander Park Jae-sung from the tactical station. Corvani heavy cruiser attempting to reach the outer asteroid belt. Pursuit course, Captain Shin ordered. Chief Lee, prepare the rails. Chief Petty Officer Lee Young-mi's hands moved across her weapons console with practiced ease. Railguns loaded and tracking, Captain. Range in 30 seconds. Kextai had requested permission to document the human response to the gathering threat, but nothing had prepared him for what he was witnessing. The humans didn't just fight. They hunted. The fleeing Corvani ship was desperately trying to reach the asteroid field where it could hide among the rocky debris. But the humans had already anticipated the strategy. Engineering. Give me a gravity pulse on my mark, Captain Shin commanded. Gravity pulse ready, sir, came the response from Engineer Kim So-young, who had been transferred to this ship for the operation. The Halasan fired a controlled burst from its FTL drive, creating a localized gravity distortion that pulled asteroids into the Corvani ship's flight path. The enemy vessel was forced to change course, bringing it directly into the human weapon's optimal firing range. Fire, Captain Shin said simply. The railgun salvo tore through the Corvani ship's armor like paper, but instead of destroying it completely, the humans had calculated their shots to disable the engines and weapons while leaving life support intact. Boarding pods away, reported tactical analyst Kwon Tai-ho. Estimated resistance minimal. Kextai watched in fascination as the human marines systematically captured the Corvani crew. But this wasn't the brutal assault he had witnessed at Harmony's Edge. This was something far more sophisticated. Master Sergeant Ryu Min-jun led the boarding party, but instead of fighting, they used psychological warfare. The humans had learned Corvani military protocols during their previous encounters, and used this knowledge to confuse and demoralize the enemy. "Attention Corvani crew," Sergeant Ryu's voice echoed through the captured ship's corridors. "Your war leader Thakmor is dead. Your fleet has been scattered. Surrender now and you will be treated according to galactic conventions for prisoners of war." The Corvani had never heard of prisoners of war. In their culture, defeat meant death or slavery. The concept of honorable surrender was foreign to them, which made it an incredibly effective psychological weapon. "How do you know so much about their psychology?" Kexti asked Lieutenant Commander Park Jae-sung. "Dr. Park Yuna has been analyzing captured Corvani for months," he replied. "We understand their social structures, their military hierarchy, their individual psychological profiles. When you understand your enemy better than they understand themselves, victory becomes a matter of logistics." The boarding was completed within minutes. The Corvani crew, expecting death or torture, instead found themselves being processed by efficient human administrators who documented their identities, checked them for injuries, and assigned them to holding areas with better conditions than most of their own ships provided. "It's more efficient to capture than kill," Captain Shin explained to Kextai. "Dead enemies can't provide intelligence. Living prisoners become sources of information and, eventually, proof that humans can be trusted to honor surrender." This was the pattern Kextai observed over the following days. The humans didn't just defeat their enemies. They systematically dismantled them, turning each victory into intelligence that made the next victory easier. The great gathering of predator fleets that had been drawn to Galactic Accord space found themselves facing something they had never encountered before: organized, intelligent resistance. Captain Shin showed Kextai the tactical displays. Red dots representing hostile fleets were being eliminated one by one, but not through simple destruction. The humans were using what they called cascade warfare. "Each enemy we defeat provides intelligence about the others," explained tactical analyst Quan Taiho. "Communication protocols, ship designs, tactical doctrines, supply lines. Every victory makes us stronger and them weaker." The humans had divided the attacking fleets into manageable groups, then systematically hunted each group while preventing them from communicating with each other. They used electronic warfare to jam enemy communications, fed false information to create confusion, and exploited the natural distrust between different predator species. "The Corvani don't trust the Hektar raiders," Captain Shin explained, pointing to the tactical display. "The Hektar are competing with the Vorth Corsairs for the same territory. We're simply encouraging their existing conflicts while eliminating them individually." It was like watching a master strategist play a game where the opponent didn't even know the rules. The human approach to warfare was so sophisticated that their enemies never realized they were being manipulated, until it was too late. But the most disturbing aspect was how easily the humans adapted to each new challenge. When the Vorth Corsairs tried to hide in a nebula, Engineer Kim So-young modified the ship's sensors to track their ion trails. When the Hektar raiders attempted to use suicide attacks, the humans deployed defensive drones that turned the attackers' own momentum against them. "Every problem has a solution," Kim So-young said cheerfully while reconfiguring the ship's defensive systems for the third time that day. "You just have to be creative enough to find it." The final battle came when the remaining enemy fleets realized they were being hunted and attempted to unite into a single massive force. The combined fleet was over 200 ships strong, led by veteran commanders who had conquered dozens of worlds. Kextai expected this to be humanity's greatest challenge. Instead, it became their most devastating victory. The humans revealed that they had been herding the enemy fleets toward this exact confrontation. The location wasn't chosen randomly. It was a carefully prepared trap. Asteroid field designated Sierra 7 has been seeded with remote mines over the past week, reported Lieutenant Commander Park Jae-sung. "All enemy ships are now within the kill zone. Engineering reports FTL disruption field is active," added Engineer Kim So-young. "Enemy ships cannot retreat. Commence Operation Cleanup," Captain Shin ordered. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The humans had turned the entire asteroid field into a weapon. Remote-controlled mines created a maze of destruction that channeled enemy ships into predetermined killing zones. The FTL disruption field prevented escape, while human ships positioned at strategic points picked off enemies with surgical precision. But even in this moment of total victory, the humans maintained their systematic approach. Ships that attempted to surrender were spared. Crews that abandoned their vessels were rescued. The humans destroyed military capability while preserving lives whenever possible. Why show mercy? Kexte asked as he watched human rescue teams saving enemy survivors. Because this isn't about revenge, Captain Shin replied. This is about establishing order. Dead enemies become martyrs. Living enemies become examples of human justice. Colonel An Jiwoo, the human intelligence officer, had been interrogating captured enemy commanders, but her methods were unlike anything Kexte had ever seen. Instead of torture or coercion, she used psychological analysis and strategic negotiation. "We understand you better than you understand yourselves," she told a captured Corvani war leader. "We know your species' history, your cultural values, your individual psychological profile. We can predict your responses before you make them." She was right. The Corvani commander found himself providing information not because he was forced to, but because Colonel An's questions made him want to prove his intelligence and knowledge. She turned the interrogation into a contest where the prisoner competed to demonstrate his strategic understanding. "Humans have studied warfare for thousands of years," she explained to Kexte later. "We understand that the mind is the most important battlefield. Control the mind, and you control everything else." By the end of the week, the great gathering of predator fleets had been completely eliminated. Over 400 enemy ships had been destroyed or captured. Thousands of enemy personnel were in human custody. The largest concentration of galactic criminal enterprises in centuries had been wiped out in a matter of days. But the humans weren't celebrating. They were already planning the next phase of operations. This was just the beginning, Captain Shin told the assembled officers. "We've eliminated the immediate threat, but the underlying problem remains. The galaxy contains hundreds of predator species. We need to establish a new paradigm." "What kind of paradigm?" Kexte asked. "One where aggression is unprofitable and cooperation is rewarded," Admiral Choi Beom replied, his image appearing on the communications screen. "We're going to teach the galaxy a new way of thinking about conflict resolution." Kexte realized that the humans weren't just winning a war. They were reshaping galactic civilization itself. The casual efficiency with which they had eliminated threats that had terrorized entire sectors for centuries wasn't the end goal. It was just the demonstrator.